Today we're talking about the Avatar The Last Airbender episode, The Fortune Teller, in which, while out doing their thing, traveling through the woods so as to avoid being noticed, and while hunting for food also, technically, I guess, the gang stumbles upon a guy who's being attacked by a platypus bear, though he's completely nonplussed by it, dodging it very calmly and almost effortlessly, because he's super confident that he's not going to be harmed by this thing. This leads them to his village, where a fortune teller named Aunt Wu lives. She told this guy that while he was traveling, he wouldn't be hurt. So he believed her, and that's why he handled the situation so calmly. Each of the three kids have their fortunes told by Aunt Wu, with Katara asking about love and romance and being told that she will fall in love with a powerful bender. Aang also asking about love and romance because he has a clear crush on Katara, and being told he needs to follow his heart to find love. And Sokka being told that his life is going to suck and it's going to be mostly his fault, which, pretty accurate. And technically, she also, I guess, predicted the final battle between Aang and the Fire Lord, too. But, did she, though? And that's my main problem with the episode. A lot of fans cite The Great Divide as an episode that they consider, let's say, weak. Weak is a kind word for it, compared to the other episodes of this show. I don't mind it much. I think it's pretty good and pretty funny. This one, though, I think is pretty weak, for reasons that are exactly the kinds of reasons you would expect me not to like an episode of a show. I am someone who very much wishes that we didn't, but unfortunately we live in a very rational world. And the world of Avatar, despite having fantasy elements to it, is also, for the most part, a rational world. Bending, while not exactly genetic, is something like genetic, at least most of the time. Once metal bending is introduced, you can only metal bend certain types of metals that have earthen impurities in them. Lightning behaves like lightning even when it's fantasy lightning bender lightning. Firebenders can technically fly, but they have to do so by bouncing jets of fire from their hands and feet. This world has clear rules. It follows the laws of physics as best it can. It's just its fantasy stuff happens within that framework, and that fantasy stuff has rules too. And while the fantasy elements in this show do suggest that telling the future could be a real thing in this world, I don't believe that Aunt Wu's a real fortune teller. I don't believe that she can actually see the future. Yeah, it's a big ask for me to ask you guys to accept that her basically predicting the final battle of this show is a coincidence. But coincidences do happen. That is demonstrable. And we do know from something later in the episode when she reads the clouds that she does at least think this is a thing that she can do. And she does research the signs and look for them in her various methods of fortune telling. And we also know that she is perfectly okay with telling people what they want to hear and doesn't even really think twice about it, because once she realizes that Aang doesn't want a big, flashy, exciting prediction like she would expect most boys to want, she very clearly makes up the thing about his romantic life on the spot. And she spouts some bullshit at the end of the episode about how you make your own destiny or whatever. But man, the people of this village clearly do not believe that. And it almost got them killed. Because the main conflict of this episode, and Sokka is a frickin' hero for trying to do something about this, and the others are negligent and foolish for not. But the main conflict of the episode is that the people in this village have become so dependent on Wu's prophecies that they don't make choices for themselves anymore. And they take risks that they reasonably don't need to take. For example, they used to annually send someone up to the top of the volcano that's just out of town, the active volcano, to see if it was going to erupt. But now they don't do that because Aunt Wu can read the clouds. And she reads the clouds. And she says that the volcano will not destroy the village today. And the nuance there is important because later, when Aang and the others do in fact save the village from the very real eruption of the volcano that happens that same day, the fact that the village was not actually destroyed is used by the people to justify continuing to listen to this woman and continuing to not do anything for themselves, not make any choices for themselves, take any precautions for themselves, not to be skeptical about anything for themselves. And there's no indication by the end of the episode that that attitude's going to change, or that Aunt Wu has stopped wanting to just keep exploiting these people. Because it's clear that she moved here and set up shop so that she could mooch off of these people, and she's just riding it. Like, there's other interpretations, but to me that's absolutely clear. That she is taking advantage of these people by telling them what they want to hear, using regular scammy fortune teller methods. Because, like, looking at Sokka and knowing, like getting any sense at all of his attitude, he's someone who makes life hard for himself, clearly. And Katara was super into this whole thing right from the start. And so even though Aang listens through the door and hears that thing about how Aunt Wu says that she'll end up with a powerful bender, who knows what she said prior to that? She could have mentioned bending a bunch of times, indicating to Wu that Katara would like to end up with a bender, or at least that's something that she'd be open to. Like, I think as far as she believes in her own abilities, the thing with Aang and the big super cracking bone that led her to reference the final battle, like, I think that was real, but I don't think that means she has any real powers. Because the people, as they're gathering to hear her predictions for the day, they say that Aunt Wu will tell them if the volcano is going to erupt. Then she says the thing about the village will not be destroyed today, and they all take that to mean that the volcano is not going to erupt. Not that the village is literally not going to be destroyed. That's what they interpret it as, and that's what we have to assume she was trying to read for in the clouds. You can't have it both ways. Either she can see the future accurately enough to know that, or she sees this foggy, hazy version where the volcano might still erupt, but there will just be somebody there who can fix it afterwards, or whatever. And, frankly, that should make you skeptical of the accuracy of her predictions, at the very least. And so, to be safe, you should still be sending somebody up regularly to check on the frickin' volcano. Like, the crap that the people were spouting in this episode sounded so much like idiot anti-vaxxers and idiot anti-science people in general. And I just cannot stand those kinds of people. Because while they try to cloak that kinds of stuff in a veneer of skepticism, what they're actually doing is just believing whatever makes them most comfortable. Like, in this episode, the dialogue is actually exchanged. They say that Sokka saw the volcano readying to erupt with his own eyes, and a guy in the crowd says that he heard Aunt Wu's prediction that it wouldn't with his own ears, and so those things are equivocal. And they're not. But that's the same kind of shit you hear from, like, a flat earther or something. And by the end of this episode, Katara has been reminded of how powerful a bender Aang is, and takes that as a sign that she's going to end up with him, which to me says that the episode is suggesting that at some level Aunt Wu is right. And I hate that, because she is obviously demonstrably not. And, like, you could say that this is a fantasy world, maybe she is right. Maybe we're supposed to assume she is and just let it go. After all, Katara tells Sokka to just let it go by the end of this episode, right? But this is a show for kids. And I'm not saying this is going to, like, ruin kids or something and turn them into anti-science weirdos or whatever. I'm stuttering a lot in this one because I'm very worked up, in case you couldn't tell. But, like, it's a show for kids. Kids are going to take lessons from this and try to apply it to their lives. That's what cartoons are for, aside from, like, selling toys and stuff, right? So what does this say that can be applied practically to real life, aside from don't be skeptical of stuff and believe whatever you want? Tell me. Because if it's saying something other than that, something better, something worthwhile, something that's not harmful, I genuinely want to know. And that's not to say there's nothing good about this episode. The humor, especially around Sokka in this episode, was pretty good. And there was a kid character in the village, Mang, I think was her name. I like her a lot. She's very memorable despite not really doing much in the story. And it does technically spark Katara's side of the Katara-Aang relationship, which is a good thing, because I like them together. But otherwise, I think this episode's just bad. And I had to actually steel myself up to revisit it today. Like, I cannot remember if we ever revisit this place. I think we do. Anywhere else in the show, in its lore? Trying to remember. I probably blacked it out if we do. Blocked it out if we do. God, I'm worked up. Take a deep breath. But straight up, I think if I did live in this world, I had visited this place and experienced what these characters did, I would spend the rest of my life expecting to hear word that this village had been destroyed by the volcano and everyone had died because they were too stupid to just check on it and know to leave. I'm going to stop here before I get more heated. Genuinely, though, despite all the bad stuff I said about this episode, if you like it, I'm happy for you. I am glad that there is one episode of this show that I don't like that you can, right? But I just can't do it. That said, as per usual, I'd like to know, what do you guys think of this episode if you have seen it? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, and while you're down there, you might as well like the video, share it with anyone else who you think would enjoy my content, subscribe. If you haven't, you can also check out links to my various social medias, as well as the many ways you can help out the channel. Those will be in the video description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.